Hey guys, it's Coach Bill. One of the questions I get all the time is how do I add more predictability to my business? How do I create that consistent momentum? And if you're anything like me, maybe you've had a month in the past where you've had a really good month followed by a not so good month. So one of the systems that we coach to is a 4-board system, or you could even use 2 large boards split in half. This is not a video about the mechanics of how to set up the boards as much as it is how we use the system. So let's first talk about the listings needed board. There's a few key parts to that. The first is we have a listings goal that we're going to start from. Total number of sold listings in a year. And then we're going to use a listings needed calculation that factors in the average days on market in your area. So for right now, we're operating with less than 30 days as the days on market. And in this example, we have a listing agent who's carrying 5 active listings. And just basic information about the listings: property address, seller's name, list price, and expiration date of the listing. Now you'll notice this dark line under number 7. What we do here is we draw this line in underneath what the listings needed calculation would be. So in order for this agent to be on track at all points in time for their listings sold goal for the year, they would need to have 7 active listings and maintain an average days on market of less than 30 days. So you'll notice they're a little bit short right here. And the beauty, I think, of having this board in front of you all day, every day, is that this gap kind of eats at you. Ideally, we'd like to have that filled in with a listing and that filled in with a listing. Now, once those are filled in, we have some additional slots here that allows us for things like days on market beginning to stretch, which, as many of you know, is an indicator of potentially a market shift. So we'd like to run a few more new listings under here with the same information. Now hop over to the buyer's board. We use the buyer's board the exact same way. Couple of things here. We run the buyer's needed calculation, and it tells us for this particular agent, based on their goals and their mix of business, we would need to have 5 active buyers at all points in time. So we put a dark line under number 5. Also point out we're looking at less than 60 days on market as the average days on market for a buyer. So a couple of ways you can look at this. Days on market for buyers is not a number that most agents track. So I think of it one of 2 ways. One way is a very narrow approach where the only buyers that you're putting on this board are the folks that we might call them A buyers. They're approved, they're ready to go, they're out working with you or your buyer's agents looking at houses. The very broad approach would be these are all of the buyers that you've met with, that you've signed to buyer agency agreement that may buy now or they may buy at some distant point in the future. If that's the case, you're going to run with a much higher days on market number, which means you're going to need to carry more buyers. So I really favor the more narrow approach, inside 60 days, inside 45 days, and then you just list them the same way we did on the listings board. You've got the buyer's name, the price or the price range that they're looking for, whatever area they might be in, and then the time frame in which they're going to buy. Ideally, we'd like to see a handful of nows up here, and then you'll notice that these are a month or even 2 months out. So in order to qualify to be on the board, again, they're inside 60 days. So with our line right here at number 5, we're good on the buy side. We're even starting to run a little bit of a surplus. Now, how would we use these boards to coach us on our business? When we've got our listings needed calculation full, we've got our buyers needed calculation full, we're good to go. We're looking 30, 60, 90, even 120 days out the windshield of our business. When we have some gaps, that tells us that we may be susceptible to having a down month, 2 months, 3 months into the future. Next, we're going to talk about the under contract board and the closings board and how you put those 4 boards together to get predictability, consistency, and momentum in your business. The third board in our 4-board system is the under contract board, and we use the under contract board the same way we use the listings board and the buyer's board. You'll see in this case that this particular agent needs to have 7 under contract at all points in time, so we put the dark line in right under number 7. You'll also note that we've built in 45 days as days to close or contract to close period. Here's the way I like to use the under contract board. You'll notice right now we've got a gap. Ideally, we'd like to have one at there, and maybe even a couple of extra ones down here. So imagine that you have this set up in your office this way. You're going to go look at your listings board and your buyers board. Now let's start with the listings. You're going to go listing by listing and say, okay, what could I do with that listing? Is it an open house? Is it a price reduction? Is it some targeted Facebook ads? Is there a specific thing I could do related to listing number 1 to get it here, or listing number 2, or listing number 3, so on and so forth. Then you'll do the same thing on the buyer board. You'll look at each one of the buyers and you'll say, what could I do to get that buyer under contract right now? What's their motivation? What's a trigger for them that would cause them to buy? And ultimately, what is it that's holding them up? Is it a pre-qualification thing? Is it they're waiting on their lease to expire? Is it they're just kind of on the fence? What could we do to cause one of those buyers, or in this case, multiple buyers, to go under contract? That's going to give you the ability to then move them over to the closings board. Now, I just use a closings board like this, little thermometer style thing. If you've got someone in your office who's really creative, or maybe you're that person, I've seen people do all kinds of fun stuff with the closings board. So with this agent, they have a goal for the year of selling 65 houses. They have a stretch goal of 75 houses. So I've gone in and put some checkpoints. End of the first quarter would be 16, mid-year 32, end of the third quarter 48, goal of 65, stretch of 75. Now we're not quite to the end of the first quarter yet, and this agent has already closed 18 units, so they're ahead of their first quarter goal, so they've already colored it in a little bit above that line. Now here's what you'll notice. You come back over here and you'll see that we've got another first quarter closing, another first quarter closing, another first quarter closing. So if all goes according to plan, this agent's going to be somewhere around 20 to 21 closed transactions in the first quarter. That's great. And if they don't bridge this gap, they're already running a little bit behind for the second quarter. So now you're starting to see how the listings board, the buyers board, the under contract board, and the closings board all fit together to give us that predictability in the business 30, 60, 90, even 120 days out into the future.